Now, it's one thing to proclaim your right to make policy that ignores the data, goes against the trends, pushes back against the orthodox wisdom.
Drill, baby, drill.
I mean, that may be a stupid thing to do, but, you have the right to do stupid, I suppose. And maybe, just maybe, chance in a million, it'll come your side and you'll be proven right about something when absolutely everybody else was wrong. So if you want to bet on those odds, be my guest. But the Trump administration is not content, it seems, with just doing stupid. Instead, it is removing the data that records what's happening in the world. It's manipulating how the data it does have is analysed to get the messages out the other end that it wants to see. And it's abolishing reports that provide data for decision makers across the world because it doesn't like the reality that data describes. So as a result, no, the Trump administration is not simply choosing to do stupid, it is seeking to actively impose stupid on the rest of the world. The president himself hinted this is very much by design when he said in an interview with The Atlantic that in his second term, "I run the country and the world," he said. We saw the most recent example of this in the last few days, with the revelation that the US Energy Information Administration, the EIA, told its staff that it's scrapping publication of its closely watched International Energy Outlook for 2025. Now, this is a key report that details the global energy trends. The reason cited was the departure of staff experts, which has been a factor with the unguided missile that has been Elon Musk's Doge. But it is also evident that the administration has been actively intervening when the inconvenient facts about world energy trends don't match what the drill baby drill president wants to hear. So the EIA already released its annual energy outlook for 2025, covering the United States picture. After publication, it suddenly deleted the analytical narrative, which is basically the core of the report. Instead, it just linked to data tables and a methods explanation, and it turns out the narrative highlighted projections that were not welcome to the lovers of fossil fuels, so it had to go. Indeed, the Department of Energy issued a statement slating the EIA report, saying, quote, "Today's report from EIA reflects the disastrous path for American energy production under the Biden administration, a path that was soundly rejected by the American people last November. Under President Trump's leadership, the Department of Energy is charting a new way forward for America's energy future, blah, 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 blah." This is just the latest example, of course. We've seen the regular National Climate Assessment that has been cancelled or postponed or something. Its 400 authors, in any case, have been dismissed from working on it. At the same time, the Department of Agriculture has removed information about climate change from its website, affecting the farmers who depended on it. And while climate data compiled by NOAA is mandated by Congress, the administration is nevertheless removing public access to that. We've seen the Committee of Economists, Academics and Business Leaders who advise the Bureau of Labour Statistics dismissed, along with other committees whose job was to advise the government on providing accurate statistics on various aspects of the economy. This came after the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick had told Fox News that he intends to alter how GDP is calculated. There's more, but you get the general idea. The key point is the impact that all of this is designed to have, and how utterly corrosive it is going to be to our ability to understand the world. And indeed for any political opposition to Trumpism, from whichever political direction it comes, to be able to use one of the most powerful weapons that you can have against autocrats, that of the truth. So it starts with the reduced availability of key information. For example, you should expect that city planners and farmers, amongst others, will want accurate information about the changing climate and likely impacts that it will have on them so that they can plan and adapt for it. The energy industry and many other industries that are heavy energy consumers, they rely on good quality data and assessment of trends in order to make the best and smartest decisions. They don't care about Donald Trump's emotional fixations about coal or about oil or his Luddite revulsion of solar power and wind power. They just need to know what's really happening so they can make decisions for their businesses in the face of reality. But it's not just about access to good information. It's also about the clear and ongoing project to replace it with government-approved information, otherwise known as alternative facts, the favourite tool of dictators worldwide. The United States may be many years and possibly a civil war away from state control of the media like you get in Russia or China. But you could envisage a situation where the government produces the official data, and then in the name of preserving accuracy and preventing fake news, it makes it legally required to report only that data. And all the supposed free speech warriors, I expect they'll be just fine with that, as they are with the idea of deporting students who take part in protests. Once the population basically knows that the government is manipulating studies and statistics, you destroy credibility, you destroy trust. You've made a big stride, then, in the direction of Putin's achieved goal in Russia, that of destroying the notion that there is even such a thing as truth, rather than a cavalcade of competing narratives, none of which are true, because what even is truth? Obviously, it's also very convenient for a government whose policies are conventionally expected to produce bad results, because if the government data says everything's going just fine, well, who are you to disagree? It's simply institutionalizing what Trump does instinctively. If Trump believes that America, for example, subsidizes Canada by $200 billion, then it's true, because no matter how often you point out an alternative view, one that maybe draws upon so-called facts, the president will nevertheless repeat his version again and again regardless. The spineless former humans that he has working for him will parrot the same version as him, regardless. So what is reality at the end of the day? Oceania is at war with Eurasia. Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia. So we can expect future reports from the US government where it presents nonsense findings that contradict the laws of physics, the laws of economics, and any other laws that it deems inconvenient. Does it stop there? Well, as Trump said, he's been elected to run the world now, not just the United States. Now, I sure as heck don't remember voting for him, but hey. And we've started to see some of how this is reflected in outreach. So, for example, just a couple of weeks ago, it was reported that the Trump administration has been pressuring the International Energy Agency. It has been attempting to block the IEA from producing data that the Trump team feels favours renewable power over fossil fuels. The IEA is an international body with representatives from 32 member countries, so the US can't just march in and lay down orders. The website Politico reported that European officials pushed back against the American tactics, and one of them said, "At the board meetings of the IEA, the US have been really unconstructive. That included discouraging any project that is not about fossil fuels." And he described the US attitudes as, "Let's weaken or disable the IEA unless they're working on our values," which is the same approach they've taken to every other international organisation. And clearly, as we've seen, to their own national organisations. Again, the point of the IEA's work is that it provides high-quality energy data that people can rely on, which should be viewed as crucial for good faith players, both for renewables and for fossil fuels, because whichever of those you are, you still want good information. Trump is not promoting his version of energy policy in good faith, believing that it stands as the best policy in the face of the facts. He is actively undermining all the indicators of what reality is, so he can push forward his preferences unchallenged. The thing his people hated the most, reportedly, at the IEA was the prediction last year that global oil use would peak this decade. This prediction, they claimed, had harmed energy investments, or informed them, other people might suggest. If you were a chief executive looking to invest tens of billions of dollars in infrastructure for the next 20 years, would you want to be able to understand world trends as they really are, or would you be content to go with Donald Trump's wishful thinking? Well, you might think, okay, that's a problem for mega CEOs, but why should I really care? Well, of course, we haven't even talked about what's happening at the NIH and what quality of advice is going to be coming out there about, say, vaccines and other health issues where RFK Jr. has been, quote, doing his own research. So yes, it's going to matter for everybody in various forms. Some are fighting back as best they can. So for instance, two major US scientific societies, the American Meteorological Society and the American Geophysical Union, have joined forces to produce peer-reviewed research on climate change to at least fill in some of the gap left by the abandonment of the National Climate Assessment. It can't wholly replace the NCA, but it can try to make reality just that bit harder to ignore, at least until such things get made wholly illegal, as we have to think might be the intention. Now, maybe you won't go that far, but you would be complacent not to be watching all of this carefully, taking control of the generation of data, only reporting that which meets government approval. It is such a long-established part of the authoritarian playbook. This will be the first time such a movement has tried to subvert a nation that has been in the lead of providing reliable data to the world, which built a lot of its success on scientific innovation, drawing from quality, unbiased research. Given the general incompetence of the Trump team, there has to be a good chance it will fail. Because in the modern era, you have to be as determined, sophisticated and organised as, for example, the Chinese Communist Party to truly suppress and control information in that way. And trying to move a country from a starting point where the US was just 3 months ago, all the way over to there, is a big task for any tin-pot would-be dictator. So that's something to cling to for the time being, at least.